best ways to counter the line other than, of course, just standing still.
Yeah, I mean, if you're bringing a mute and a mirror, then of course you can peek over the mirror window while a lion is popped off. But if not, then you don't. It's not an option. You're gonna get detected. So here are the bans. Team Liquid will ban first. FaZe will ban second.
Chalet, Consulate, Bank, Cafe, Coastline, and Skyscraper gone, which are going to give us Border, Clubhouse, and Oregon. And those are two, Oregon and Border. I'm surprised to see that Border will be the decider, but we'll go with an Oregon and Clubhouse to start. Now, Clubhouse is, I think a lot of people could say Clubhouse is very played out in the approach to it.
I think played out is the right way to describe it. But the interesting thing is in this meta, it's so different now. I mean, it's definitely flesh. Everyone knows what's going on Clubhouse, right? But it seems like the meta has just completely imploded as of late with the addition of Lion. We've seen a lot of basement holds, which used to be, I think, touted as one of the easiest to defend sites in the game. Now, not so much. I mean, we've seen a lot of defenders lose downstairs on this map. So, and even more wins at times, oddly, on bar, which is an oddity.
Yeah, and the Clubhouse is of course being reworked, so this is just all speculation going forward, but hopefully with the rework to it, we're going to see more diversity in the way that sites are attacked, and then site holds as well, and it's one of those things where Clubhouse is very much a byproduct of the meta itself, as you touched upon, like you see that there used to be the old church take where you'd hit that church wall, you'd be able to blow that open, you'd push up the bar there, and that would be most of what you did. Then comes around Hibana, and now all of a sudden, there's some viability in pushing blue. There's some viability in being able to attack kitchen, because I know a lot of people might forget this, and if you're relatively new to the game, there were, 3-4 seasons without Hibana being able to take out hatches. You only relied on a thermite. That was it. Those 2 exothermic charges were all you had. And imagine now using an exothermic charge on a hatch. How ludicrous that seems.
It really does seem like an odd concept given that it happens so frequently, though. And, it's funny when you have a conversation with one of the pros that have been around for such a long time, since the very beginning, they start talking about, it's like, oh, back in my day, you couldn't open everything, but now you can. Now you can open all the things. You got all the options. It's magnificent. And, well, some people think it's magnificent. So others have conflicted opinions on it. But it is kind of an odd thing that we have such a huge shift in meta over one operator who has, since her release, consistently been one of the most picked operators in the game.
And I think it's kind of funny just from a technical standpoint how Hibana does everything, and we always get kind of caught up in this whole like which operators are too overpowered, which operator blah blah, and then it's like Hibana sits untouched.
She's been there.
Untouched. She's so good.
The beginning. I mean, she has the hard destruction. She technically has soft destruction too. She's got an amazing primary weapon and an amazing in some instances secondary weapon. She could be a primary weapon. She's got usually you put an ACOG on the primary, you've got your long range on lock. You put a reflex or hollow, of course, on your secondary, and you got your close range completely on lock. It's just you got all the options.
3 speed, small hitbox.
You have flashbangs. You've got some form of minor disruption in that. You also have a claymore if you want to watch your flank for yourself, and your 3 speed.
With a relatively small hitbox.
With a relatively small hitbox.
Hibana has definitely had a profound impact, especially on Clubhouse, and it's made most sites a lot more difficult to defend. And I wonder if that's something that we're going to see addressed here. But
you know what else she clears ADSs?
That's true.
Very good point. ADSs right now in this current meta are so important. He's the only operator that catches nades outside of course, Bandit, if you happen to throw a nade on an electrocuted wall. But the X-Karos, 1 or 2 of those will deal with all 3 Jaegers if they're.
An ADS takes care of 2 grenades each.
Yeah.
So there's 3 ADSs. That's 6 quick maps, and then of course 1 X-Karos is 6 as well. So you can actually clear out all 3 ADS. Yeah. So let's say you've got 2 ADSs down by you're defending the main floor of Clubhouse. You're defending stock. You've got 2 ADSs situated just through the kennel doors with a smoke playing on top of it, which is pretty common to do. 1 X-Karos shot haphazardly through. When you really don't need it that hard unless you're pushing strip, you've cleared both those ADSs immediately.
Oregon basement defense. You're coming in through the main lobby. The Jaeger has set up all 3 of his ADSs, 1 in the closet, 1 behind the counter, and 1 over by the actual bomb on the wall. 1 X-Karos going towards the mirror window, just to even get the mirror window, even if it's not your plan to get those ADSs.
You're still going to get them.
And you're going to get them all.
So.
That's Habana.
And that's why she's such a high pick rate,
Yep.
obviously. So looking at this ban phase, though, you've got FaZe playing Clubhouse, you've got Liquid playing Oregon. FaZe has one of the deepest map pools in all of Pro League.
I would say so.
The only two maps that they tend to seem to never play are Coastline and Skyscraper, which was peculiar. The map that it came down to against EG, also a map that Evil Geniuses doesn't play at the Invitational, and ended up being, the fatal blow to FaZe, as they just simply weren't able to adapt fast enough to Evil Geniuses on that matchup. Looking at this ban phase, I'm comfortable if I'm Liquid, knowing that you banned FaZe's strongest maps. You've got Bank off the board, you've got Consulate off the board, you don't have to worry about those at all. But I hesitate to call a winner on this one.
I mean, obviously you talked about how FaZe, they don't really like their Coastline, their Skyscraper, and we see that they banned that away. They got what they wanted there. They also got rid of Cafe. Now, honestly, to me, that just seems like a slight preference pick. I mean, something's like, oh, we could just not play Cafe right now. And if we're talking about winners of the ban phase, I would say conservatively FaZe, just because they're going to be comfortable on Oregon Club border. They're not going to be outside of their element in any way there. Liquid, on the other hand, I could say the same, to be honest. It really... Yeah, no, I mean, of course it was FaZe who went to Clubhouse, so they're going to have a slight edge there. We have talked about this in the past. Clubhouse is the sort of map where when you are familiar with the map, like really in-depth familiar with it, and you manage to get it into the pool for your match, you're going to have a distinct edge there. Liquid might be a little bit caught off guard with that pick, so that could give FaZe a slight edge. So I want to say conservatively, FaZe.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to be able to beat FaZe in a map. It's similar to Penta, similar to Evil Geniuses. I would say very similar to Black Dragons and maybe Liquid as well. Though I'm wondering if Liquid's map pool is changing now that they've made the roster change. Now that they might be adapting some role changes, because it was only the Invitational qualifiers where they dropped one, moved to MOPA. They picked up Sexy Cake. They had some role changes going on there as well, and now PSK coming in. So,
I mean, PSK for you guys is not a huge shift. It's not like they rotated off Nesk or Sexy Cake or any of the the heavy swingers that we talked about earlier when we were going over the rosters. Those guys that you expect to outperform and really stand out for their team to get them that win. But Yuke was also a very influential player on his team, from my understanding, who had a lot to do with the core, and more importantly, filled a particular role that is essential, which is that support role.
Right. So we poll your opinion before every single matchup to see what you think is going to occur. And between FaZe and Liquid, I'm sure that this was pretty close. I would be surprised if it was a blowout, but it is actually. FaZe Clan taking it 70 to 30%, and that, you've got to think, is probably based off of recent success.
Performance, yeah.
It's got to be, because both of these teams are huge. You know that Liquid has an enormous fan base too. Zig is one of the largest Latin America.
Probably top 1 or 2.
I would say, yeah. He's got what, 1 million subs on YouTube or something like that.
It's a big deal.
His stream and his YouTube pulling a huge amount of traction, an incredible amount of following on social media. And I think with FaZe, it's more just that all 5 of them are really well known, and on top of that, the team has just been so good recently. I mean, let's just look back to the Invitational. Prior to their defeat at the hands of Evil Geniuses, they were beating teams 5-1, 5-0. Even the scrim reports we were getting at the practice facility, they were destroying teams 5-1, 5-2. At worst, they didn't lose a single map, if I remember correctly, at the Invitational during the scrim setup.
Well, just on the notes of scrims as well, I mean, we were hearing the same thing about Liquid during the Invitational scrim setup.
That's fair.
Everyone I talked to, like Penta, for example, they were saying, yeah, Nesk is just destroying people in scrims, absolutely tearing teams asunder almost single-handedly. And people were afraid of him. They were like, oh yeah, they have a good chance going into this Invitational. And then what happened? We didn't really see the performance that we were all expecting out of Liquid. They seemed like a super team. They seemed like they were formed specifically to win that Invitational, but they just couldn't make it work. And I mean, for FaZe, I talked about it earlier, the only match in recent history where FaZe has not seemed like they were doing well was that EG match. They just seemed like off. Something was wrong with their chemistry. They played really well and they went really far in that match, but it just didn't seem like the FaZe that we were seeing earlier in the Invitational and the qualifiers. Or not the qualifiers, the group stages rather.
I don't know how much I would agree with it was FaZe being off or
I
Evil
mean,
Geniuses overperforming. Not
EG was playing amazing.
so we have to give credit to FaZe in the sense that they handed Evil Geniuses their very first loss on Bank ever in a match, period.
Yeah.
And Troy, Canadian, in the interview afterwards talked about that and said that I think they had never lost Bank ever, and they lost, and they didn't just lose to FaZe. They got demolished. It was like 5-1 in favor of FaZe. So it was a drubbing. It was no contest whatsoever. And of course, it's one of FaZe's best maps, so it stands to reason that they would play so well. And then of course on Skyscraper, still pretty close. It was, I believe, 5-3 was the final score, but neither of the teams really had any strategies. And all it came down to, if you recall, was one of the attacking round wins. That was it, because the defense won every single time.
To me, it seemed like FaZe was a little bit off that match compared to some of the earlier ones that we've been seeing. But you're absolutely right. Against EG, there's so much speculation that you could put into it because it's EG. Come on, it's EG. They went toe to toe with Penta in the finals. It was right. But anyway, we digress. Yes, so FaZe have been seeming very strong was the point I was trying to get at. Throughout this season and previous matches that we've seen them under the banner of FaZe, they have seemed like a very formidable opponent and just a team to root for. Liquid, on the other hand, not so much.
For me, when I'm looking at Liquid, there's a couple things that I'm going to need to see from them today, and I think they're going to need to have show up and prove in order to defeat FaZe. I think coming into this, you're looking at FaZe, who has been one of the most consistent teams in Latin America over the last 3-4 seasons. Competing probably with Black Dragons now as another team that has been very recently competitive and kind of taking Liquid's spot from when Liquid was so dominant a couple seasons ago. For me, if you're looking at Liquid, number one, you cannot rely on Nesk to do all of your fragging. You just can't, and that depth needs to go down deep on that team.
That's the thing, is everyone thought when Sexy Cake got brought onto the roster that it was going to be Nesk and Sexy Cake, but it hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen that formula really spark into life yet. And that was, everyone was talking about Sexy as he's the up-and-coming, young talent, and you want him on your squad, and that's why Liquid has him. But where is that cake that everyone's talked about? It hasn't been finished baking yet? I'm not sure, but he's got to show up sooner or later.
I liked your bakery-related puns. It's a shame we don't have Cafe up first.
Oh.
If only.
Well,
as for the rest of the team, though,
we're going on to organs. I hear cultists like
that's
like
fair.
cake. Yeah. So
PSK is going to be interesting for me to watch. The one thing with Latin America as well is that the BR6 has been going on.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, the Latin America regional series that they have. It's using a different score setup. It's the 1-6, for example. And Liquid has looked really good in that, as has FaZe. And we just saw FaZe compete, actually, against Black Dragons and won on the weekend. And I think, I could be wrong because I haven't watched the entire time, but I believe Liquid and FaZe are both undefeated in the BR6 right now, which means that for a lot of people, this could be a future showcase match in BR6 itself, and we could just be getting a preview of it ahead of time. At stake for this matchup is the winner of either FaZe or Liquid will go on to the regional playoffs. They will play the victor of Bootcamp and Team 1 in a couple weeks' time. The loser will go up against the winner of Yeah Gaming and BRK, which comes up next. So no matter what, if I'm Yeah Gaming or BRK, I'm pretty unhappy that I have to square off against Liquid or FaZe in next week, because that's going to be a pretty lofty goal to be able to beat them. Doable, but still a worthy adversary.
This is the last season we're going to have where we're going on this structure where you have this narrow window to get to a seasonal final. Now, of course, we're moving over to the new structure, and it's going to be, a lot more like even. You go against everybody, right? And where we have it right now, yeah, you still have that tiny little window. So there's only so much you can do to jump through that window. And certain teams are looking poised, of course, as has it always been, to win and go into the playoffs and in stride, and then finally make their way to the actual seasonal finals. And that's just kind of the reality. But there's always potential for upsets, and there's always potential for something to go awry.
It's funny because if you look back a couple seasons ago, North America and EU both got 3 spots to send, with Latin America getting 2. Now with the the foray of APAC into this scene, now every single region gets 2. But I think if you were to look at, let's say we just have the 3 regions, I think you could make a pretty compelling argument that Latin America definitely would deserve 3 spots because of how competitive it is at the top, and that's what has made Latin America so exciting. And I think a huge part, in conjunction with how rabid the fan base is over this game and over the teams, why we've seen so many global orgs move into Latin America as a region. And you've got Yeah Gaming, which is Fallen and Taco's org. Great players for SK, a team that is competing in North America, but of course for another game. You've got Liquid, you've got FaZe. There's always been rumors of other orgs looking to just jump right in. Red Cannons is a huge org as well. Team One, also a huge org, though based solely in Brazil. So it's just the region as a whole's prowess, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see the depth of the region continue on. But map number 1 is all set up for us, and Oregon is going to be the scene. It's Liquid's pick against FaZe and Liquid to start things off.
So, Oregon, map we've been seeing quite a bit of, especially as of late in most recent times, and it's definitely one that if you follow Rainbow Six esports, even remotely, you are very familiar with. You generally have an idea of how the meta is going to play out on this map. It's pretty cut and dry, and it's kind of almost going the way of old Clubhouse, where it becomes predictable to a fault. But we have seen some pretty awesome adaptations and new strategies come out, especially lately. We see that kitchen defense very recently, which was really interesting to see.
For me, the big thing with Oregon is it does seem to be ground zero with testing new operators and new metas.
Yes.
I mean, when we saw last season, when Ying was playing a huge part in the meta, and Glaz had reemerged as well in relation to the strength of her gadget, it was Oregon where everybody seemed to go, and there was that Ying push through the main lobby that seemed to be unstoppable, and teams would consistently try to beat it. It was fun to watch, and I like that about Oregon. I know there might be some complaints about the fact that Oregon does seem to be seen a lot of, but it's a stable map. It's very balanced, it's very even, it's very fair, and even though there's really only 2 viable sites on it at the current moment, they both play out in very different ways and allow for teams to do different things with them. And I think that for me as a spectator, I don't get bored of watching Oregon just because of that variance.
Well, I believe that, it was really, as you said, it was Ying, who's kind of the diplomat that brought Oregon into the forefront of Rainbow Six. And it's just kind of persisted there because it's a dynamic, well, I don't want to say outright dynamic. It's not like Consulate or anything like that, or Border, but it's dynamic to the point at which you can create variance, and that all these new operators and this new meta that's been developing has shifts and turns on Oregon. It's never the same thing over and over again. But there's a certain baseline understanding that will always be there with this map as well, where every team has at least a gist of what's going on. No one's ever caught completely off guard, which we have seen at times with maps like Coastline, for example, or Skyscraper, which is sometimes why we don't see those maps played as often. But, could just be because, of course, those are slightly newer maps. All that said, we're finally into the match, and speculation can turn to the wayside as the first C4 goes out and hits a player. Mav goes down. That's the Blitz. A huge kill there for Zig. Starting things off snazzy.
Hard to exactly pin down which operator you're going for when you toss that C4 up there, but netting a target such as a Blitz is crucial to start off a round. And we say start off a round because this has been a pretty slow start so far. You've got a minute left now, and the only real action that's taken place, they've got that front meeting hall hatch, or they've got the front hatch. They haven't been able to put a lot of pressure on meeting hall, and you've got 3 on site. You've got Bullet and Sexy Cake from Liquid playing up in meeting still right now waiting. Sexy Cake was originally playing on that pantry wall. They'd lost it to some Hibana charges, and Sexy Cake instead heading up to the attic now to watch that potential drop down as Liquid has opened up some of those hatches in the back of meetings so they can rotate down when need be. Right now, though, pressure being applied to the closet of where the Mira stands. That's PSK. Both PSK and Nesk are going to be your main 2 anchors.
What?
And Moringa just gets a kill as Zig runs up. That's the Pulse. Not using his scanner. A great nade from Gohan will take out PSK. And now you've left Bullet and Sexy Cake far off site, with Nesk going to be the only one to defend against the attackers. They managed to get that defuse down pretty easily.
So Sexy Cake at the top here, looking through the stair hole. Moringa's going to get Nesk as he starts to rotate back, but it's also going to be Bullet eliminated on the flank, and Gohan gets Sexy Cake. So a very interesting strategy set up there from Liquid. It was picked apart swiftly by FaZe, despite the early C4 onto the Blitz. A lot of pushing power was lost in the first minute or 2 of the round, yet FaZe still managed to persevere there. Now, the interesting thing for me was we saw 2 players from Liquid choose to go up to tower to set up a late rotate, crossing next to the attic outside, which it works. It's a viable rotation, but you have 3 players left, and 2 of them do that? Just questionable.
I would wonder why it happened so late in the round. You did not have the luxury of time on your side at that point, and I think FaZe saw that, read into that, and said, all right, let's accommodate the fact that they're not going to really contest us on site, and let's make it difficult for them when they try to come back.
Well, there was also the fact that they got the perfect nade on Mira, who was playing the Mira window. That completely defunct the whole defense, as well as Zig.
Zig just rushed the stairs in the cover of smoke. I don't think he expected the Hibana to be that far up. That might have been the case, but...
I agree with you. He probably wouldn't, right?
But well, I mean, I don't think he would have run so haphazardly if he had known that there was somebody there, because but essentially ran right into his death.
Yeah, but it's the question of why. You know, why are we trying to rush the bottom of the main stairs? Is really the question I'm trying to get at here. I just... Well, it is what it is, and FaZe Clan will take round number 1. That's the important thing. Now they're going to get to defend, and they will choose to go upstairs.
And this is the site that we see typically have more success for the defense on as well. And I think that this needs to be repeated often. Typically, the laundry room and supply room and downstairs of Oregon has been the easiest time for defenders. This has changed, of course, with the advent of new operators. It was made very difficult by Ying. Glaz, of course, is an issue for it. When Capitao was released, too, it made defending downstairs even more difficult because you've got those arrows that are immune to the ADS. And then, of course, let's not forget what Hibana would do to the fact that there were 3 hatches, and then you don't really necessarily need a thermite there either. But lately, it's been upstairs. It's been kids' dorms up top. That has been where teams have fought over. So it is a little confusing on its own to see Liquid go downstairs to begin with.
Yeah, they had a really intriguing strategy, and I think if it had been slightly better timed, then it could have been extremely successful. And I think that Liquid was just trying to, you know, display their new strategy and slightly, you know, poorly timed, but, you know, it could have been good. So we are going to see Liquid kind of wait on this west window. They're just looking for picks, but FaZe Clan, of course, not going to be handing it to them. Meanwhile, downstairs, there's going to be a little bit of a contest on the roamers, who are trying to hold out the push from Liquid. Here comes the assault through the west window, though. Sexy K going to rush into Big Kids. Flash someone who isn't there, but PSK with the backup gets Moringa. Gohan from below, hitting the impacts, looking for some frags. It's a primary defense from underneath, and Nesk is going to get another one of the anchors as he starts to move his way up that white staircase. That's Astro. And the bomb, or diffuser rather, has been planted. Now a forced retake from FaZe.
And now Ness gets another kill, leaving FaZe in very bad position. Though Mav will get the blitz as Sexy Cake gets a little too aggressive and ambitious as he drops through that hatch, but a very troubling situation for FaZe as they're going to need to retake. The Lion holding on hope here, and Gohan will lose that fight. Bullet manages to take down Mav as well, and now we see 2 consecutive rounds where both teams have failed to get back to site quickly enough to stop them. That defuse going down relatively easy, or relatively uncontested rather. And I mean, we had it just the previous round. They were defending Meeting Hall, they couldn't get downstairs in time, and this time they had way too many bodies downstairs, and I think both of these teams have read into that and said, let's just go to the site.
Yeah. It's probable that in future defenses we'll see a lot more site-heavy holds. Because, I mean, it's pretty easy to read at this point that both teams are just, yeah, as you say, going to the site while on attack. So, vaulting in through the west window and simply pushing is a viable strategy should the defenders let you use it. And especially when you have a blitz to kind of spearhead that assault, yeah, no worries there. So good attack there from Team Liquid. They're going to go back downstairs instead of rotating to the top. Interesting.
I have a feeling we're going to see something very interesting from their setup at the moment because they're not bringing a smoke with them, which suggests to me that they're not going to push as hard inside of Closet. They're probably just going to have the Mira of PSK play Closet, and that is basically going to be it. I would imagine that once again, even though we just speculated that we would see more bodies on site, we're probably looking at more of a roaming off-site hold for them with potentially a quick rotate. So you stack up a lot of bodies in meeting, maybe even just have the Mira downstairs by herself, and then the moment that the push comes, you can use the opportunity with those open hatches to scoot back downstairs.
Offense is the best defense, some say, and this could be just that interpretation, as they are very poised to simply wait up on the top floor. Now, they have to be worried, of course, of a potential push straight into the site, though I see it as unlikely given that FaZe are looking to do a west side clear, which means they'll fall somewhat into the trap of Team Liquid, which is prioritizing the roamers.
Amazing as well that FaZe was still able to win that first map, or the first round of this map, with their blitz going down early. Astro, as the Thatcher, will be taken off the board in the first 40 seconds as he just inexplicably pushes into Nesk's Legion, and that is it for the Thatcher.
You know, we didn't see it, but you could certainly hear it. That was a one tap of epic proportions, I'm sure. It's unfortunate that we couldn't actually see the kill.
For me, though, without that Thatcher, it's going to make getting that hatch a bit more difficult. Now, I mean, usually with the X-Karos, depending on where you put it on that hatch, usually one will go off, which is enough to actually get the hatch itself. You don't need all 6 of those pellets. One is suitable. But, I mean, that's going to come down to where did they place the mute jammer? Where do you lay those X-Karos? Because you don't want to burn an entire charge or 2 on the hatch.
You know, there's so many good places that you can use an X-Karos, and you know that's why we see, especially in Latin America, a lot of thermite being brought alongside her, even on sites that you don't necessarily need all that hard destruction on, just for versatility's sake. But in this case, we're going to have Moringa kind of interestingly trying to contest the roam in tower. That's Bullet, who's playing at the top, waiting for his opportunity. Now, he's been successful so far in this roam in that he has wasted 2 whole minutes and is still captivating the attack. Zig will TK onto PSK, so the new member getting a little bit of hazing, but Zig will also get Mav with C4, and that's very important. Gohan has managed to inch his way into the site and is now trying to Candela the player in closet. He will be successful. Zig goes down, and so will the defuse plant. Team Liquid so far off site, they're gonna have to retake onto their own mirror windows. Cameraman will get Nesk, and a double for him as Bullet goes down. Sexy now the final defender will have to retake into Meeting Hall, looking for his opportunity. No C4, so no hatch for him. He's gonna have to use the staircase the old-fashioned way. Pre-fires come out from camera as he has a teammate calling out information, and a continuous stream of bullets from the very large magazine of Lion will win the round.
Not much of a chance there now, and this is once we're going to continue this 3 rounds in a row now, 3 rounds where the defense has not been able to get back, and I think a big part of that, and now if you watch very carefully, is the way they've been using those Lions. They've been deliberately using them to force the flankers to stop in place, which speaks to how many uses that EE1D has. You can use it to hunt roamers, you can use it at the pre-plant, you can use it mid-plant, you can use it post-plant, all different scenarios in which you can make it more difficult, and in some cases a nightmare for that defense to be able to retake the site, stop the plant, get to site, or kill you before you get to the site.
And on that exact note, we saw just that happen. We saw a perfect read from FaZe. They were like, oh, well, Liquid's not holding the site right now. They're all playing roam heavy. So what should we do? Let's move ourselves over to tower. Let's go to construction tunnel, and let's push into the site. And they did just that. And then as soon as Liquid read the push and were like, okay, time to rotate back, red light, stand still.
I'm wondering at what point do you say we can't have as suitable a roam game, because part of when you have those roamers and those players off site, you're doing so to gain map control. You know, if you stick all 5 people in sight, you're giving up all of that pressure on the rest of the map. Not just in terms of time, but also in terms of fragging potential. There are too many issues with keeping that many bodies close to site, so you have to at some point have those people at the start of the round roaming. At what point do you say, okay, let's get back to site? Because the reason why I ask is that Valkyrie was very far off site and once again seemed to want to go through tower for the late flank. And this is the 2nd round in a row where it's just been a puzzling choice.
You know, honestly, Parker, I think that last round was the round where you say, let's go back to site. I feel like after the 1st round where you're roaming, even lightly, they didn't even do a heavy roam. the first round when you're roaming and it just does not work out for you, that's when you call it and say, we need to consolidate, we need to focus our efforts on countering what the opponent is using and in terms of attack strategies. And Liquid went the opposite direction where they went heavier into the roam, and that's a questionable decision. One of many, though, so far in the first 3 rounds. We have, of course, this 4th round, so now it's on FaZe to be the ones to change their interpretation of the defense, but they're not doing so.
And Zig is going to see the Jaeger of Astro, and Astro has no chance at all. Frozen in place originally as Zig put the pressure on Astro, playing just by that closet wall. He takes him down, and that's the Jaeger off. But at least with the Jaeger, you still have persistent gadgets, so it's not detrimental.
Yeah.
It's not like you're losing an operator whose gadgets will go to the grave with him, a la Smoke, or what on earth was
It's a
that?
reset.
Zig went flying through the air like Superman off the top of the tower, flying off the top rope like the Hardy Boys as he'll get reset.
Strategic HP gains, of course, you know, you break your legs and you get a little bit more HP. That's how it works in Siege. Now you're going to see an attack in through the back hall. Wow, a double knife for Sexy as he just does not care, using that shield to perfection. Finally shut down by Moringa, but the diffuser has been planted. And one roamer still off-site, puzzlingly inside of Attic. That's going to be Moringa now, the only anchor with very little HP, trying to fend off 4 attackers. And he will finally be eliminated. Nesk watching the flank. He will get Gohan on said flank, and there you go. There's another attack round. So that's the 4th in a row. And neither team has managed to figure out that they need to change their defensive strategy and go for a more consolidated effort. Now, the one thing that we have to give FaZe credit for is that they did go to a different bomb site.
They also did have 4 bodies within striking distance of the bombs. Sexy Cake just happened to kill 2 of them. The only one who was really that far off site was the Legion, who could have come back to site.
There was also the roamer inside of Generator at the top floor earlier in the round who was eliminated by the Lion.
Right.
So I mean,
3.
so 3 bodies on the site, but still more than in the past.
Right.
So FaZe, they're starting to inch into it, but a little bit more dedication. You know, honestly, it's just speculation. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe what needs to happen is a full 5-man roam, but clearly what's not working for either team is the roaming.
So we'd spoken about at the very beginning of the broadcast how one of the keys to Liquid success is going to be ensuring that people outside of Nesk can carry their weight, and right now Zig, we had also discussed at the start of the broadcast, top fragging on his team. Maybe not in terms of point total, but at least in terms of kills, and he has had, after that first round where he may have done the head-scratching job of pushing his pulse, assuming that there wasn't a Hibana there. I mean, contesting those stairs is quite smart, especially if you have that cardiac sensor. I just don't think he was expecting the Hibana that close. But since then, a major U-turn, and now Zig is leading the way for his team.
You know, Zig is not exactly the player that you would point out on Liquid and be like, he's the fragger, he's always getting the kills. He is a very good player, but he usually fills a support role, sort of a passive role, and gives information to his teammates and helps out the squad and lets the fragging fall into the shoulders of the likes of Nesk, for example, as we talk about many a time. So it's really nice to see him filling a different role in this match and doing a really good job of it so far.
So Sexy Cake on defense has only fulfilled the SAS spot at the moment. He's done mute twice and will now go on to smoke. So once again, a bit of a variation. They're just changing a couple operators around. They are insisting, though, on that defense inside of Kitchen and in Meeting Hall, which I think they're putting a bit less stock into Kitchen this time around. They seem to be playing much deeper into Meeting rather than actually sitting in that Kitchen wall.
It seems like Team Liquid are playing a very passive roam. They're just having their presence exist, but as soon as they feel threatened, they fall back immediately, and I honestly think this is the right interpretation and definitely what they should be going for. I also like how they're using Zig to gather tons of information over by the main lobby. As soon as he starts prompting his team, he's going to start telling them, oh, we need to come back to site once the attackers get set up and ready. And that's a good tripwire.
Now, it's unfortunate for FaZe that they didn't lose Astro in this round because it's far less detrimental to lose your Thatcher early when there's no mute to be wary of. So expecting a potential rotate, they will set down a Claymore just by the generator window, and there's only about a minute left in round number 5, all tied up between both teams. As was mentioned at the start of this round. It's been 4 rounds for the attackers thus far. We'll see if that trend line can continue. As the first hatch goes, Zig throws a C4 up. Originally it had gotten the blitz in round number 1, but there will be no victims this time around, as we'll see if FaZe, heavily droning the site, can start to push. One thing that it does look like Liquid has done is it does look like their bodies have gotten back to site a lot faster. Here is Bullet, who has spent the last 2 defensive rounds dying on tower stairs or nearby, is now back on site.
Interestingly, the only roamer is Sexy Cake, and he's playing Smoke. Now, we've seen Latin America use Smoke as a roamer many times. It seems to be something they prefer to do with him, but, you know, it's still an interesting decision whenever it's made. EE1D pops off Smokes, and Candelas are live. C4 manages to miss, and it seems like the attack is well within hand here. Cameraman will get Sexy Cake, and no response from Team Liquid so far. We're coming down to the last couple seconds, but the diffuser has been planted. Second EE1D pops off. Zig will get Mav peeking wide. He has been detected, but no reciprocation from the attack. 2 for Liquid. FaZe Clan now playing focused on the objective all the way upstairs. It's going to be Liquid who have to push up and get these kills. Cameraman will get 2. Zig and Nest go down, and PSK has been downed as well. So it's just Bullet in 1 versus 3. With very little time and a bad position, he will also die to Cameraman, who I believe got a actually a 4K in that round, I want to say. He entered into the site as well, I believe.
Cameraman has definitely picked it up from where we saw in the previous weeks. And once again, another attacking round victory. Now, 2 things to note for me there. Number 1, Liquid's retake almost worked because they had the bodies on site to contest after the plant went down. So FaZe rushes into the site, throws the smokes down, throws the candelas down, gets the plant off, but then Liquid is able to counterpunch because they didn't lose bodies early on. However, the one thing that completely threw it into turmoil was that all 3 of those EE1Ds were used in 20 seconds before the plant, and then 1 after the plant as well.
Yeah, the EE1Ds really were the monkey wrench in the gears there for Team Liquid. You could see that they were struggling. The interesting thing for me also to add to that is that we actually had an EE1D popping off, and in the middle of that EE1D, we had Liquid members moving, being detected, and getting kills in the process.
That's right.
And there was very little refrag that was happening. That was the EE1D that popped immediately post-plant. So, despite that effective gadget from FaZe, we did see some assertive plays from Liquid. You have to give them props for that, despite them not winning the round. Now, we've said this before, but we're just going to touch on it yet again. Not a single defensive win yet. Just continuous streams of attacking victories over and over and over again here on Oregon so far.
FaZe is going to set up in a very similar manner to the way they did on round number 2 when they last defended upstairs in Kid Storms. And they're going to put a lot of bodies and presence in Kitchen. Now, the way that they tried to play it out previously was they threw grenades at the floors, they shot out the floors, trying to hold off against Liquid's push from below. Liquid didn't invest a lot of time pressuring Kitchen, and instead just took the site and forced FaZe to recommit to coming back. This time around, what do they have to do different to make sure that works?
This time around, they need to be more assertive with opening up the floor, and it seems like that's just what's happening here with FaZe. Now, they also need to not lose Cameraman to a very simple run-in from Nesk. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, was an example of a tremendously good drone game from Team Liquid, calling out the information for Nesk, allowing him to simply peek in and do what he does best. So, but yes, not losing your Mira immediately into the round would have been nice, but I think they've already done one of the things that I would have liked to see. If you're going to commit to a downstairs hold, really commit to it and open up that floor much more. And it seems like they've done just that.
And one thing they also did was they have 2 bodies downstairs, it appears, and they've taken the mirror away. Actually, make that 3 bodies. It looks like Mav, Astra, and Gohan are all downstairs in the kitchen right now,
Dangerous.
meaning that Moringa is the only one up top. And Ness is going to take full advantage of that. If they've droned correctly, they know that they have all of this free real estate, and the smoke just completely out to lunch. Moringa is going to take a dive for the team, as now Nesk in sight. That means that every single member of FaZe is underneath, and they have full and complete control. They just need to start the plant off. Astro and Gohan trying to get back to site are completely frozen, and FaZe, yikes, they are playing with fire and being burned right now alive. It's a 5v1 as Liquid has complete and utter dominance and no chance for Gohan as Nesk. A tremendous round, and Liquid as a whole firing on all cylinders. Once again, another attack victory, and it's the same story as always. Get back to site a lot faster, or else what you just saw happen is going to keep happening over and over.
Parker, would you say that was
Oh no.
free real estate? Free real estate. It was free real estate.
You can't just, you can't give up. You can't have 4 bodies downstairs and just have a smoke play upstairs. The way that this match has been going, you need to make that course correction. Now, against certain teams, that might be a viable strategy, sure. But right now, it's not working for any team. And at some point, one of these teams is going to figure that out. I think Liquid started to slowly right that ship a round ago, but it wasn't where they wanted it or needed it to be. Now we'll see if they can be successful. No team has won defense, so every single site has been unlocked, and we're just going to see them continue to fight over, do we go upstairs to bunks, do we go downstairs to laundry?
The bummer for me about that last round was that it can be summarized by saying that Liquid droned well, Nesk ran in and got site control, end of story. That's it. They figured out, oh, there's only one anchor and nobody's watching white stairs, so let's just get behind the singular anchor and kill him. And we win the round. But here we have another attempt at a defense. So Liquid going back upstairs. This was, I believe, the site that they went to, where they actually, I don't think they've gone to the top floor.
Liquid going to upstairs?
Yeah,
they have not.
They have it.
This is Liquid's first crack at the second floor. They have only gone downstairs thus far. They have played it completely different. The first time they were very, very deep on roam. Second time a little bit less deep, maybe a bit more shallow. And then the third time they were able to get bodies back quicker despite it not being successful.
And now finally they are going to choose to do something completely different. And it's a little bit of a mixture. They've got the roamers, they've got the anchors, but overall they're going to a different site, and that's the most important note to make here. This is also the first time we're going to be seeing a heavy anchor game on the actual top floor, because FaZe has been prioritizing playing beneath the site rather than in the site when going to this site. So something new, that's for sure. This could be the formula that is also needed to get a defensive win on Oregon.
And their setup is very similar to ways that we see Kid Storms being played, at least in previous seasons when Mira first came out. You've got one body playing up by master bedroom on a Mira window there to keep control of Armory in that hallway. You've got one inside of B site, and then you've got another playing on top of White. As you can just see, that's the smoke. You saw the first gas canister being used. That's pretty early that the gas canister will go. That's PSK, who's probably going to be fighting for his life as a potential shield is going to come up and pressure onto him. They have made him burn all of but one of those gas canisters, which means that PSK is going to need to toss potentially another out as he gets betrayed by that red dot site. Goes for a quick peek, and there we go. The final gas canister will go and tries to soften up Mav, but cannot land those shots.
This is probably one of the fastest paced attack rounds we've seen in a good long time, and especially the fact that you're getting all of those gas canisters, very efficient from FaZe Clan, but they've lost 2 players now to Sexy and PSK. Cameraman will respond. Nest goes down inside of the main lobby / classroom. Mav also gets PSK, so an even playing field here.
And of course, this is how almost every single round for FaZe seems to play out. Pressure the site and have Cameraman do cleanup work.
Oh no.
Zig, though, being detected, jumps out and takes down Moringa. It's Mav with just a shred of health and Cameraman left, and we could see the first successful defensive hold. Zig takes out Mav, and it's all up to the Lion, who at this point will need to get a 4K. He already has 1. The next 3 will need to be his intended targets. Red light will come out. He's going to come up the top of White Stairs and wait to see if there's somebody that he can pressure onto. Doesn't have hold of the diffuser and has 35 seconds to go, expecting a push through the hallway just by Classroom. He has no idea at the moment, and this speaks to the fact that they did not do enough drone work ahead of time, and that Liquid playing their unpredictable style and rushing the way they have means that we could very well see our first defensive grasp. 20 seconds left. Camera goes for a flash through the ground, and very wisely, Bullet is not going to bother to pressure. Nobody from Liquid is actually pushing onto Cameraman. They're waiting for him to come in, and Sexy Cake, poised at the top of Master Bedroom, will give the defense their very first win on a very steady hold for them.
So that was indeed the formula, or the recipe, if you will, for the defense to finally get a victory. Team Liquid going to that top floor, anchoring, and FaZe Clan's really struggling to get up those white stairs. Meanwhile, their push downstairs was thwarted by a well-placed roam inside of the main lobby. Well done all round from Team Liquid, and putting it onto match point, They're also going to thrust FaZe onto defense, which they have yet to win.
And they're going to go downstairs. I figure for FaZe in this situation, you're not successful on either site, but I think they've looked really weak, especially if their entire point of their defense is to have those many bodies downstairs. Now, if you take a look at the bottom of that scoreline for FaZe, that cannot be happening. One of their standout performers in every single season, currently unable to get on the scoreboard with 0 kills on the stat line. That is just, you cannot have that happen. And the biggest issue with that is that the rest of the team will have to carry that weight. Cameraman right now is actually doing a very remarkable job to hold things together, but similar to the way that we thrust it upon Liquid, you cannot have one person carry all of the kills for your team, and right now it feels like Cameraman has been doing more than his fair share for FaZe.
Yeah, and FaZe is the team that you would really look at and say they're not that kind of squad. We talked about it earlier in the rosters. They're the sort of guys that everyone contributes. Full 5-man roster where everyone's getting kills, everyone's calling out information, being support players, being fraggers. It just seems hard to really place them in those roles. But here in this match, that's not the case. Now, of course, we must remember that this is a Liquid's map pick, so could be that FaZe are somehow uncomfortable. Now, we talked about in the map ban phase that FaZe don't have a lot of maps they aren't comfortable on, but it seems like they're just a little bit less, I guess, on the razor's edge when it comes to Oregon.
Both of these teams have failed to adapt to defensive strategies that really don't seem to be working against one another, and the only team that has been able to fix their problem was Liquid, and that of course shows by the fact they are the only attacking round victor, or the only defensive round victor right now.
Right.
Rather, whereas Oregon, it typically is a map that is a bit more even in who wins on attack or defense. Right now, you see the Ella of Moringa waiting on the stairs for that blitz to come down. Sexy Cake slowly inching his way, will hit that barbed wire ever so slightly. But FaZe, take a look at that. They are all just clamped down on the site. All 5 bodies on site for FaZe right now. So talk about not allowing history to repeat itself.
They finally got the memo, but will it work for them or is it too late? The Blitz pushing down those main stairs, going to try and flash Moringa, but he's actually getting lit up, down to 50 HP, and the C4 will finish him. But the EE1D is going to detect some players. However, one downed attacker will force no push, and Astro will also get Zig. The teamwork at holding these main stairs is amazing from FaZe, and Liquid seemingly are not able to counter it. What is happening here? The mute jammer on the table, not letting the drop down get opened up, but why? It's avoidable, and Team Liquid don't seem to know that. Sexy Cake is on 1 HP, and he's just barely holding on, trying to contest this, but oh no! A technical double kill for Moringa, as Bullet also gets a team kill, as well as shutting down Moringa after Moringa's first. It's going to leave Bullet in a 1 versus 4, so it looks like we're going to see overtime unless Bullet has something amazing to show us.
And he finally burns that ADS too as he comes down for the jiggle peek around the corner, sees the mute. Mav loses his head, but there's still 3 more to go for Bullet, who has sustained some damage. He'll get a second on a Gohan. Can Bullet pull this off for the W? 15 seconds. He holds onto that diffuser. He will need to climb up on top of one of the plant spots, but there is still remaining a Mira with that Nitro Cell. The ADS will eat it, and Astro comes out from behind the Miro window to finish off Bullet, and we have seen the unlikely 2 defensive victories in a row will put us into overtime.
Oh, that mute jammer. The way they placed the mute jammer, it was on the sink rather than on the corner of the actual countertop. Now, usually when you put it on the corner of the countertop, what it does is it captures most of the drop down, but not all of it. There's a little corner that's towards the sandbags in the main lobby, that little corner that you can put a Excaros on and open up the drop down. But you notice they put it on the sink. That means that if the attacking team is reading you have a mute and they're thinking that there's going to be a jammer on that drop down, they're going to put it on that corner. But the sink is closer to the corner. So they couldn't open the drop down, or at least they thought they couldn't, but all they really needed to do was switch corners they were putting the Excaros on, which is why there was such a heavy investment in that hold of the staircase, because the defense was reading that they weren't going to get the drop down open. What a beautiful mind trick there.
And on top of that, they had the mute jammer guarding off the bottom of the stairs with an ADS. They tried to get the information that they needed on how many people are at the bottom of the stairs. I think that's partially why we saw that Sexy Cake pushed down as quickly as he did as that blitz was because I think he was trying to essentially be that drone for the team because the actual jammer was depriving them, or at least depriving Liquid of knowing what was down there. They weren't expecting to have 3 members of FaZe, all completely tripled up on the bottom of that staircase. And Ella might not be as rampant as she used to be, but she certainly still has her uses, and that is absolutely one of them. A tremendously large magazine that you can just lay into your opponents, and lay into is exactly what she did, which allowed the Jaeger to do most of that cleanup work.
You know, the really funny thing to me there about that round was just it was a total mind game from FaZe. That's all it really was. Liquid had the capability of opening the drop down at any time they pleased. They just didn't know it because FaZe was psyching them out and forcing them into something that Liquid just wasn't used to. Now, we do see an interesting lineup from Team Liquid. They've brought a Mute.
Most importantly, they're on defense. They have to defend twice. That is a yikes, all things considered right now.
Yeah, I mean, sure, absolutely. But we've seen the turnaround from both teams on the defense. For me, it was just they needed time to adapt and figure it out. It took them most of the match, but both teams figured it out. So that's the important thing. We saw FaZe and Liquid both prioritize anchoring, and what happened? They started winning.
Can that continue? They've gotten the Mute Jammer, they've got the main hatch, they also sledge the top of the stairs, so any pressure on the top of the stairs is going to be negated if there's somebody up there watching, and it looks like our first E1D will come 90 seconds into the round, so at the exact halfway mark, it will hit and freeze everybody in place. It doesn't appear that FaZe has taken much ground with it, but they're just starting to line up their ducks and get them in a row right by that main hatch. It's likely going to be a push down that hatch and through the main stairs, and I'd imagine they're going to employ Mav. There's no barbed wire on those stairs, so Mav can just freely sprint down to the bottom of the basement stairs and just stare at the mirror.
Now, we've seen 2 minutes expended here from FaZe, and Liquid have been very hands-off, as you can see, doing that passive roam ordeal yet again, where they just peel and peel and peel and try to waste as much time as possible, and they've been really successful in that. But what is this? An attempted defuse plant, but it was just a fake out. The C4 from PSK, though, will not come out, so good on him to be able to read that situation well. Gohan gonna get PSK though, who was playing the mirror window. That's one C4 that will not be detonated. Meanwhile, Zig rotating into the closet, and we have the diffuser planted. Team Liquid now forced to retake. C4 goes out into classroom, and Zig will hit it. Astro goes down, and a very close potential retake from the meeting hall. It's gonna be Mav trying to anchor in the site. Sexy Cake gets Gohan, and Mav has been down, leaving just Moringa and Cameraman, as Nesk also gets Mav in the finish off. But what is this? A complete clear for Team Liquid. FaZe go down, and what a retake. The first whole and true successful retake we have seen on defense so far in the post plant. Well done.
And that, I think, what we just saw from the retake is what they've been trying to accomplish for every single round that they have gone down to Laundry, which is when the diffuse plant goes down, you know they're going to be stacked up on those stairs. Maybe have one watching hatch. You push at both the same times and you catch them in the crossfire. It worked to perfection that time around, and they just split FaZe.
I mean, did you see the Mute's position there? He was right in the meeting hall doorway when the diffuser was planted. He was waiting for his team. Perfect opportunity. As soon as the team starts pushing, he starts pushing, and an absolute slaughter on that retake. Very well calculated from Team Liquid. Perfect timing. And I honestly, I think you can attribute it to them taking their earlier strategy where they were trying to do the double rotate from tower to top of west. And instead of doing that long-winded rotation, simply putting their players in a position to pounce when the opportunity is right.
That whole push falls apart if Zig doesn't get that Nitro Cell kill on Astro. By taking out Astro, who was watching the hatch from above. Speaking of Astro, he's finally been able to get on the board with 2 frags to match Mav's total. If he hadn't gotten that kill onto Astro, watching upstairs, there's no way you can reliably rotate with that hatch being open. And yeah, you have to rely a lot more on your 2 flankers being able to get those kills, but that throws the entire Liquid retake into jeopardy there. So Zig needs a lot of credit for being able to quite literally blow that wide open in order to cut off that pressure from the hatch and give the defenders some breathing room to be able to get back onto the stairs without somebody watching from above.
Yeah, Zig has been having a great match so far, and Nesk, who must have heard us talking about him not getting all the frags, has turned up 10 kills for him, and he's matched and then some Zig's 9 kills. So a little bit of a wake up there from Team Liquid. They are seeming on point right now, and I really have to say, this is Liquid's map pick, sure, but credit where credit is due. They are playing really well right now, and I think this is a Liquid in a form that we've not seen from them since, well, their existence, really.
This looks like the same team that was known as BRK that managed to go into the final or into the LAN and beat everybody else in the Latin America finals in year 2, season 2, as we refer to it as. That would be, I believe, season 5 at that point. So, or potentially season 5?
No, season 5.
It would be season 5.
Season 5.
Still trying to adjust to the changes.
Three seasons in a year, or at least that's what it used to be. Soon that won't be what it is, but
exciting changes.
Exciting changes.
So, we have seen a lot of drone work as FaZe goes upstairs to the kids' dorms and towards the bunks.
You know what I most note about this? They have not given up on this downstairs hold. This is their third, I think, attempt trying to execute the downstairs hold. Now, they've made one change, and that is they have somebody playing outside of Master in the hallway. So a little bit heavier on the anchoring, but still. This again.
They're going to rely very heavily on Gohan to be able to nail that C4 through the metal rails on the floor. They also have Mav with the C4 from below, so tons of explosive potential for them to be able to blow this wide open. And of course, also the Mira of Cameraman downstairs. So there's 3 C4s, so this is going to be the crux of their strategy at this point, is blow them to pieces when they get inside of the room. You've got Moringa upstairs, who will completely shroud himself in smoke as one gas grenade goes down. Not terrible timing, will hit about 40 seconds, and there's no real threat to an immediate push, though Sexy Cake will inhale some of the gas just by the window by Generator and look to push in. Astro of the Jaeger, instead of playing by Generator, is now situated over by Master. And Sexy Cake looks to push in as one smoke goes down, and that'll take Sexy Cake as Moringa catches him, and FaZe now in good position. There's still the 3 below as we hit just under 30 seconds, and Liquid will need to close this round out in order to take Oregon, or it will be yet another defensive hold. Nesk just storms right in, and Nesk with 2 on the bottom. He takes Mav and Cameraman down as Astro doing some work up by Master, but it's a rally as Zig and Nesk now take out 2, and it's going to be all up to Moringa to clutch, but he has Diffuser down. Will he be able to win this? The Lion is going to grab the Diffuser. They're going to take that Mira. He sees the Ash, and they're just going to win on defense by hanging on. They bleed out the time. And Moringa survives inside the corner. They couldn't find him and get the plant down in time. And we are on round number 11, as that has now been 4 defensive wins in a row.
What a play. That was Moringa, the smoke, correct?
Absolutely was.
That was an amazing... Props, Moringa. The perfect read. The only position he could have gone to forego a fight, and he went to it. He committed. He knew there was no one on that west window because it was clear. He knew that there were 2 people coming from below, and he was like, yeah, I could go to the A-bomb and maybe try to take the first fight that comes to me, but I know the second person would refrag me because the enemy team is too formidable for them to make that mistake. So I'm going to go to Dresser West window, the only place that they will not check when they come into the site. And they didn't check. You saw Nesk, he came inches away from checking it. He came off that peak at the last possible moment, and it ultimately costs Liquid the round. And potentially the map, as we now go to the very final round, FaZe Clan will have what I think we can consider the advantage at this point of attacking. But questionable, considering we've seen quite a lot of defensive wins in the latter half of this map.
And it was this site for Liquid that actually sparked this renaissance of the defense. They went to the 2nd floor for the very first time on Oregon, and that was the very first defensive round win. Liquid will go up there yet again. So they have a 100% win rate on this site on Oregon so far. They will need to keep that perfect, or else FaZe will go to map number 2 with the advantage, and map number 2 will be Clubhouse, and that is, of course, FaZe's map too. So you would imagine that they're going to be as battle-tested on it as Liquid has been so far. No matter what, though, we have been treated to quite an exquisite matchup between the two of these teams, and I think have been far closer than a lot of people suspected, which is exactly what you like to see at this level of play.
Oh, absolutely. You have to question, though, will it continue when we get to FaZe's map pick? Of course, Clubhouse, the second one in this series. And if it does continue, will we be able to see Border, the third potential map in this series? And honestly, I certainly hope so.
Border would be an exciting showing between the two of them. Oregon is any indication. Now, a minute down, and very similar lineups for all of the teams. Mav, once again, will be the shield for FaZe Clan, and priority for them is going to be to not have him die early. Bullet has continuously played off of site. He's situated on those stairs leading down to the basement. You've got Sexy Cake watching the attic from above. So Bullet at any point is capable of coming back to site. Bullet's had a pretty good day so far, very accurate with that MPX. Now it's Nesk as well on the roam just above him. He's playing on Armory stairs.
We talk about how much blitz we have been seeing in this match, by the way. I think most rounds we've had a blitz, and of course a Lion, but he has been stomping past the competition really as an operator, seeming very prevalent between both teams. Now, Nesk is going to be roaming over by Classroom, and there's a little bit of a read here from FaZe. They're aware of this, but they don't check the right corners, and Mav will go down. Moringa with the refrag thanks to the EE1D. But still, the shield lost. That's a huge blow to FaZe.
One grenade will sail through that west window and find no target. Zig playing very deep in kids' dorms, just waiting. You also saw that there was Bullet as well as PSK lined up double on top of White Stairs. And White Stairs is going to be a tough nut to crack for the defense. One will get downed and picked back up as PSK is going to be positioned very well, but Astro, who has caught fire as of late, is able to eliminate PSK. You've got the smoke, so you can quite literally breathe easier on top of those White Stairs. But a C4 from Zig will sail out. He's been very accurate with his projectiles so far, but that trend will break as the C4 completely misses, and the final EE1D goes down. Bullet is trapped on Armory stairs, waiting to get back to site. Zig will now get pressured inside of Classroom, and will get pushed, or rather by kids, and Bullet takes out Moringa as he comes back to site. Sexy Cake eliminates Astro, and right now Liquid with a big advantage. Zig dives out the window, but Gohan gets it. They'll need to get the plant off. They don't have it. Bullet takes out Gohan. Who will get it? Bullet just needs to hang on, and that'll be it. Liquid once again persevere, and it's 2 rounds in a row where the defense just simply needs to wait out that clock, and Liquid takes their map by a score of 6-5, sending us to FaZe's pick of Clubhouse.
So, attack, so on and so on, attack. And then defense, what happens? The resurgence, both teams, they read each other accurately. They figure out what they need to do, and suddenly a 6-5 all the way, but defense the stronger side, and Liquid persevering because of what we thought was going to be an unlucky coin toss. Now a lucky, it's just what a turnaround.
We thought that maybe, hey, at some point this stat line is probably going to flip back. It's been trending towards the defense over the last couple rounds, okay, but statistically it's bound for an attacking, team to win. And what was a very attacker-dominant and attacker-sided map ended up becoming a defensive showcase at the very end. So this is what we expected when you have 2 Titans coming into this matchup. 2 of the best teams in Latin America, 2 of the best teams in the world getting to play for you, and we're not even in the playoffs. That's the best part about this. We're always treated to these matches on occasion, or once or twice a season, and we get to see it here, and we have a front row view. So when we look to Clubhouse, neither of these teams have really been running Yings all that much. We've seen her a couple times on Oregon. We haven't seen really any Glaz. Blitz is going to likely play a pretty big role, but we've seen tons of C4 usage and operators holding down sight lines through the ground. That is something that we see happen quite a lot on Clubhouse. And how do you think that's going to play in for map number 2?
Honestly, I think in map number 1 on Oregon, of course, Liquid's pick, we saw more creativity from FaZe, yet it didn't work out for them in the long run. They tried to do a lot of strategies which, again, creative, like holding the top floor all from below. It's not like it's a new thing. It's been done before, many a time, yet it's something that is not often seen, and sometimes because of that, not often scrimmed into teams' memories, and thus harder to counter. But they did it. FaZe committed themselves to it. It didn't work out very well, but they committed. And that creativity is not as rewarded on Clubhouse as it is on Oregon. I feel like on Clubhouse you really need to commit to what is the known quantity of the meta. Because if you try to make something anew, your own path, forge your own destiny on Clubhouse, it will often be your demise. So I am worried for FaZe. It is their map pick, so that's the one thing that, of course, you have to fall back on. Is like it's probable that they've got much more refined strategies here, but still, that creativity could work against them on such a kind of set map.
So you would say playing safe may not be sexy, but it's the smart choice to do.
Yes,
I would say that. Safe.
We both got our sexy cake puns in for the day.
We did them at some point.
It's happened.
These are half-baked puns.
Mm.
So Clubhouse is coming up next, and the one thing too that I'm going to look at with Clubhouse is that it's a map where typically, here's your pattern. You win downstairs, you go upstairs, you lose upstairs, rinse, rinse, cycle, repeat, etc. But we're not in that anymore. We are at a point now where Clubhouse is very much attacker-sided. If you take a look at what we just saw in Oregon, the first 6 rounds were all in favor of the attackers. And we were thinking, okay, wow, this attacking statistic is going to be quite a marvel once we're done with this match. And then 5 consecutive defensive rounds to give us 6 attacking, 5 defending. Pretty close trend. What are we going to see on Clubhouse? And I mean, you're going to think most matches play out the same, like you said. You're going to have to play safe. You can't really take chances. There were a lot of chances taken on Oregon. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. Clubhouse is going to be
interesting.
Interesting.
It's the word. I mean, we use it a lot. But
right.
That's really what it comes down to. I think, if we take a step back, that's what makes Rainbow Six Esports so magnificent, is that it's so very interesting. But really, truly, on Clubhouse, what he said is correct. What Parker was getting at is correct. Right now, the defense doesn't seem to have a home to call their own. It used to be basement, and now it's just like, you figure it out as you go, Sonny Jim. And it's very dangerous because of that. It really thrusts you when you're on the defensive side into this like paranoia or a fueled gameplay where you're not sure what you can really accomplish. So I think it's likely we're going to see the same typical things play out, because it's not like Oregon where the basement stops being viable, so you go upstairs. It's the basement stops being viable, so what do you do?
There's basically 2 ways that we've seen the attacking teams work on Clubhouse basement. Number 1, you hit the bottom of the stairs, you hit the Moto Hatch or Motorcycle Club or Memorial, as some people call it, Memorial. And I think there have actually been some people who confuse why we call it Moto. We call it Moto because there's a motorcycle there.
Almost every pro team calls it Moto. Now, there's some in North America.
It's important to know.
It's just it's Moto. Instead of Memorial.
So, a lot of teams will pressure the bottom of the stairs. They might put some pressure on Churchwall. You'll have somebody drop Moto. You'll make sure that blue is completely clear, and then you push into Church. And then you make sure that the people playing in that Arsenal side are not able to get back to site. You essentially zone them out. Or you have somebody push in through dirt if you can clear it out. If there's a Jaeger in there or a Legion or a Smoke playing, you take care of them. Or you push blue if that's the path of least resistance. And then you drop through kitchen, and you take that, and you once again make sure that if you're in Church, you can't get into Arsenal. They all typically tend to play out the same. Don't even get us started on Stock, because right now Stock with Smokes and Lions and Tigers, oh my. You just push inside a Stock, you can take strip very quickly. You get a plant off amidst the smoke, and there really isn't a lot that can be done. You hope that your C4s land. You hope that if you have a Yokai, you can knock them out.
I mean,
what more is there to say?
Clubhouse, yeah, we've summarized it many times. Basement, you got your hammer anvil strategy. That's what happens every time. And on the top floor, or not the top floor, the middle floor, you're going to have committing to one side or the other. You're either going to come from strip into pool table and also take master, so you have the vertical control, or you're just going to push in through stock and take control of garage, so you have that crossfire. Those are your 2 attack strategies, and sometimes we see some really cool interpretations whereby an attack will execute onto, say, for example, stock early on. They'll open up that wall by lounge and garage, and they'll get their crossfire, they'll lay down their smokes, or maybe not lay down their smokes, but they'll get the crossfire, maybe get a couple picks here and there, and then they'll rotate their push over to strip. Or vice versa. The rotation potential on that map is astronomical for the attack because you can do things like put a player in kitchen or over by the main metal stairs if you have them come up from the basement. Or you could put them over by the front door, and those positions, or even upstairs in Master and open some of the floor. You can put them in these positions, put attackers into these positions, and completely cut off the rotation from the defenders. So you start off with a stock push, you put people on rotation, you bait the defenders into rotating, maybe get some of them on that rotation, and then you keep those players on rotation, walk, and then you rotate your attack over to the other side, and then it's more rotation from the defenders, more players caught off guard, but all that is just talk, and let's get into the actual nitty-gritty of Clubhouse. We've got some exciting potential here on this map. It is, I think, in this meta, it has yet to find a safe haven for the defense. Will that safe haven be defined here?
We'll find out. FaZe is going to start on defense. Of course, no surprise there. A Lion and a Blitz getting brought. Ying is going to come out right away. Buck in place of a Sledge. And downstairs will be where FaZe goes. Unsurprising to see them start off there.
I mean, yeah, where are you going to start out? I mean, on Clubhouse, if not the
just
bait.
cash. Go cash.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Commit.
Just send it.
Be like SK. Commit.
So they'll go downstairs. They'll have a Valkyrie. A Valkyrie is an interesting choice. Take us through why a team would run a Valkyrie rather than a Pulse in this scenario.
So most of the time you're going to see a Pulse, obviously, and that would be because you're going to put your Pulse underneath the kitchen, and then you can see tons of things. You can see whoever's pushing the main stairs using your cardiac sensor. You can see anyone inside a kitchen. You can see anyone outside a kitchen, outside the building. You can see people in the kitchen hall. You can see a lot of stuff, right? And you bring a Valkyrie if you're trying to maintain more site presence, as is evident by the 2 Valkyrie cam placements so far from Mav, being in the site. Now make that all 3. So that's the plan here for FaZe. They are waiting for the inevitable control from the attack, which we all know to be so prevalent in this meta. The attackers can just take things, lock it down, and there's not much the defense can do about that. But with Valkyrie cams in sight, you give your team another chance, especially post-mortem. So when you have a defender die on that initial entry, what can often happen is they'll get on those cameras and support their teammates after they're dead. So lots of information in the site. Good idea there from FaZe.
So 45 seconds, no pressure right now on Dirt whatsoever. Also, interesting, no Hibana.
No Hibana means that not much is going to be able to be opened up by Liquid. Interesting decision there. There is so normally when we don't see a Hibana on a site where you would typically see a Hibana, you attribute it to, oh, they weren't expecting this site. There is no way that they were expecting something that was not basement on Clubhouse. So this was a conscious decision made by Team Liquid. Either that or a tremendous hiccup. Either way, doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to open up the majority of the drop-downs, especially given the fact that they opened up the tunnel.
They've already got a lot of pressure that they can put up upstairs. As you can see, they look right down inside of Arsenal. And one of those exothermic charges being used on the Dirt tunnel. Now you'd imagine that the other is probably going to be kitchen, because I would imagine that their push is going to involve kitchen and then maybe the bottom of main stairs.
Ding, ding, ding.
Right now, no worry whatsoever from any nitro cells. Sexy Cake is inches away from the smoke of Gohan inside of Dirt tunnel as Bullet shoots away at the floor. They're doing a lot of environmental destruction to try and get sightlines down into the areas where you know that Liquid, or that FaZe rather, could rotate through and possibly get a pick mid-rotate.
Of course, you do see all 5 of those defenders anchoring and just waiting the timeout. As you see Smoke, he is going to eat some bullets to the chest. That's Gohan being lit up, but he's done much more damage to Sexy Cake, who's going to be forced to fall back. EE1D pops off, and a good amount of the gas canisters have been used too, I believe, leaving Gohan with just a singular one. So he's going to try and contest this regardless. Sexy could die very swiftly, especially to a Jaeger who is now trying to help out Gohan on this hold. The push, though, from Sexy Cake, and he gets Gohan. Can he get a second? No, Moringa shuts him down. Mav with the C4 and Cameraman getting Nesk. That's leaving Team Liquid with 2 versus 4. Zig will successfully drop into the site. That's a pretty big position to have, but he rushes into the hallway and gets dispatched by Mav, leaving just Bullet. Wow, what a shot from Astro. He was not supposed to win that fight. An amazing round from FaZe Clan, holding that tunnel and being aggressive and assertive onto Team Liquid, snatching that defensive win on the basement.
And we're going to continue the defense winning.
There you go.
So the trend carries over from Oregon. A couple things that happened there. Number one, the way that they pushed Sexy Cake at a dirt tunnel and the way that, I believe it was, the Jaeger pushed up on him was masterful. And I use that word masterful in the sense is that, yes, it's unfortunate the smoke died, but you essentially traded the smoke for the blitz. At that point, the smoke wasn't as important as the blitz was, because if you let that blitz get through dirt tunnel, you've lost a lot of control over site, and you now have that shield coming right at you. Though I am a bit confused as to why Zig sprinted through the site when he had what appeared to be a relatively healthy popped smoke for him to potentially plant in. Likely done because of the fact that even if he had gotten the plant down amidst the smoke, then he would have had to deal with a retake after that.
Yeah, that's the second time that we've seen Zig make a questionable push through adversity. He's trying to find a foothold in a barren land, and it just hasn't been working out for him. All the booby traps that were laid out previously in the prep phase really countering his ideal path, as you can see. It's kind of curious. I mean, really what it is the mind of a playmaker, but unfortunately, he's playmaking into the clutches of the defense or the attack in whichever situation. So, but I mean, it's nice to see him try, though. I mean, he's been playing really well. When he plays the more, when Zig specifically plays the more consistent game where he just goes for the kills, plays the defaults, does what he knows, he gets a lot of kills, fulfills his role, and is darn good at it.
You can see Nesk here prepping those openings above the actual reinforcements. There are only a couple walls in the whole game that are used on sites that allow you to do this. And part of it is, when it's on exterior walls, the attackers can rappel and look through. Think about the detention wall, for example, on border, which is the next map should we need it. In this case, what it allows a Valkyrie to do is heave a C4 through that slot and potentially kill somebody at the bottom of the stairs. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it is sure a sight to behold.
So that particular C4 is one of the hardest C4s in the entire game to hit. I mean, I remember the struggles of even hitting a nade through that hole. You open it up fully and it's difficult to hit a nade. A C4 has a slightly bigger hitbox, I would imagine. So overall, very challenging. Now Zig is going to get the first kill, and lo and behold, with a C4, Gohan will go down. Astro eats some of his own X-Karos and takes about 25 damage. So a little bit of FaZe Clan being at the disadvantage here, at least early on. Mav also going to breathe in some smoke as he pushes into the tunnel. So FaZe getting pushed back by Team Liquid's hold. And this actually seems similar to what we were seeing in the previous round, but obviously team switched.
So it's going to be the blitz going through dirt tunnel. I mean, in all reality, your best case scenario is to have the blitz go through there and clear everybody out for your attack. It's harder to engage a blitz in close quarters like this. You can't establish crossfires on him, so you basically have to take him head on. Your only real option to slow him down are what we're seeing being used by Liquid, which is fill it full of Legion traps, make him have to consistently stop, eat that 10 damage every time he steps on a goo mine, and then just cycle him out. And you can see they've almost bled Mav dry. He's very low on health, and now Astro trying to assist the blitz. That smoke is going to linger for about another 5 to 10 seconds, as meanwhile off-screen, FaZe starts off their killing by Moringa taking out Nesk. And that is not just a priority target as that it's a Valkyrie, but it's also Nesk, and I really don't think we need to talk about Nesk any more than we already have and what he's capable of accomplishing. But look, here's a big difference. FaZe has been able to get safely through that tunnel due to Astro and Mav's joint push.
20 seconds though, EE1D will pop off. Camera's gonna have to drop with his teammate Astro and Mav both coming out of that tunnel, and nobody there to greet them. Team Liquid somehow losing their foothold, and FaZe will get their way in. Sexy's above though, and Zig gets a double kill on to the players coming out of tunnel. Bullet will finish off Mav as he pushes into blue. A resounding hold there from Liquid. FaZe seemingly getting that site control in the last little bit, but it didn't matter because Liquid was all over it.
I was wondering if Zig was going to read that play and push up as he eventually did. He saw that the defuse was going down, or at least may not have seen it at that exact moment, but all he needed to do was peek around the one rotate hole, and then he would have seen that the defuse was going down. And it must have been on the 5 or 6 second mark. So we were just a hair away from Zig possibly getting those kills anyway, but having the diffuser to work with, at which point it becomes tougher but not impossible. And then all it really was left up to Liquid and to clean up, and just as everybody expected, the first 2 rounds have both been defensive holds, which is of course exactly how Clubhouse plays out all the time.
Yeah, I mean, in most recent times, it seemed like it's been a bit of a shift where defense has struggled to win at all, but not here, it seems. This is going back a little bit. I mean, going back to your classic Clubhouse, as you say, you know, what you would expect. And one thing I really want to touch on here is both teams have had the same exact attack strategy despite their loadouts for operators being different. I mean, one has a Hibana, the other doesn't, yet they both attack the same on Basement Clubhouse. No diversity whatsoever, and it's being read like a book for both teams because they understand what's going to happen because they do exactly that. So, you know, it's curious. And the whole attack strategy is push through tunnel and kitchen drop. That's it. That's the strategy.
So we'll see that this time around, Liquid, who got first crack at attack, did not bring a Hibana this time. They will now bring a Hibana and a Thermite to attack Bar, of course, rather than needing it on the actual basement itself. They will also be able to start on the garage wall. There does seem to be some hesitation, likely Nesk waiting for a call, and it'll come out as he hits 1 round of X-Karos, the second one too. And you're not really going to need that wall to push through necessarily. You're just going to need it for a vantage point, to be able to see through it and be able to establish potentially a crossfire or at least dual coverage on stock or that lounge area where the actual other side of the wall leads you into. And they'll continue to drone to find where everybody is. I'm surprised that it hasn't been as brisk of a push onto stock just yet. They know that there's one playing there. They also have an Echo to deal with, so finding that Yokai is going to be absolutely imperative before they can get anything going, because the defense can just dig their heels in and knock you off a plant.
So yeah, having the Echo on this defense is extremely important. They also have brought, I think, most of the ACOGs you can get on defense with the Doc, the Rook, and the Echo. Really want to emphasize that long-range engagement potential, and that's exactly what this site is. Again, that is why the Yokai drone is so important. Now, Nesk is going to rush into site and get Cameraman. That's the pulse, but Moringa will be there to refrag, playing from the stage. And there's still a solid hold on that stock room from FaZe Clan, despite the good attack strategy execution so far from Team Liquid. They have the crossfire they need. They have the players in position. They've gotten the defender in the site, only losing 1 operator. All they need to do is wait for the smokes and candelas and the EE1Ds to delay the FaZe retake. Now it's going to be a lot on Gohan with his Yokai drone to deny the plan.
And it'll come out. Smokes being tossed, and that was a smart trade as Astro beheads Zig. Goodbye, Lion, as Bullet trades it off with Moringa going down. You've lost their smoke and their pulse. Right now, definitely benefiting the attackers, and they get the diffuser off too. Now Liquid will continue their winning ways as Astro gets punished before Mav takes out Bullet, who had just gotten that frag. You've got your Rook and your Echo in the post-plant scenario. Not terribly situated for the defense. They've got 2 3 armors, they're not going to be particularly nimble, and they're going to be making a lot of noise. But the Rook lights up PSK, and it's all Sexy Cake. The second newest member of Liquid will have to wait for them to start hitting that diffuser. The Echo is nearby. Will Sexy Cake be able to stick the landing? There will be another ACOG watching him as the Echo works away, and he sees the head of Echo. He takes him down. They're just going to need to wait on the time. Sexy Cake, what a clutch! The Ying taking out Gohan and Mav, showing that that LMG is in a pretty good place right now where it is. No chance at all, and Liquid takes 2 in a row. The first attacking round victory, and Liquid will take the lead for the first time.
Well done to Liquid there, specifically Sexy Cake, of course, but overall just a good execution. So let's talk about it. What happened there? The Yokai drone being eliminated, oh so crucial. The smokes were placed perfectly despite losing members on the entry. They managed to get the diffuser down in time, being so objective focused, and that's something we can really attribute to Liquid. We've noticed, I think, throughout this match that is their priority. Clearly, they just want to get that diffuser down, especially, well, obviously, on attack. On defense, they also have been, I think, the first team to start adapting to playing on the site. So their shift to objective-focused gameplay has really aided them a lot in this match so far. And they've got a lead now on the second map of the series, potentially the last map of the series, if they keep this going. If they can win this bar defense and break the clubhouse rhythm, we always talk about it like this. You break, the first team to break the clubhouse rhythm, to get out of that mold, is often the team to win.
One thing as well to focus on there, I don't know if this was planned, by the way, that Liquid got that plant off, but it was done in such a way that Echo was going to be exposing some of his body at some point into that doorway when he started the defuse, or any operator rather, but it was the Echo in this case. With his head showing, the LMG that Ying uses takes a lot of abuse. It is one of probably the least efficient guns in the entire game. It's kind of lousy at a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But the way that it was played and the way that Sexy Cake did it was quite nice. Now, on the TS, of course, there is a potential buff to the gun. I think some people can argue if it's
46 damage?
It's 43 damage. It's
43?
9 damage, which is very, very large for that gun. Will Bullet be able to pull off this bandit trick? Yes, he does. So he's able to get that wall, and that's one round of X-Karos wasted away, and Bullet played that well. But my point about the T95 is that it doesn't really matter what the damage is if you're going to be using it the way that Sexy Cake did, and in that case, in a pretty decent shape. If you're getting headshots, it doesn't really matter what the damage is.
Right, you are. Now, what we're seeing from Team Liquid right now is exactly why you do not attack Strip unless you have a really good plan. Because we've already seen this round. Uh-oh, that was a mistake from Zig, and now the Yokai is given away. If it's eliminated here, that's actually huge for the attack. And oh, Zig gets a little overzealous, commits too hard to the peak, trying to save his drone. He knew how much it was worth, but it wasn't worth his life. And now his teammate Bullet, left out in the open all alone, will die to Mav's rushing blitz. A huge misplay there from Zig. It's going to cost Liquid a lot in this round.
I feel like you were just commending Liquid on how well they were holding Strip there, and now it's completely fallen apart.
That's exactly what happened.
As Mav now has 2 kills, as that blitz, that freight train with the shield just keeps going in. And that's German engineering at its finest.
Choo-choo.
Leaving Nesk upstairs to try and watch weight room, maybe get control of the hatch. One will drop, that's the Buck. No silent drop this time, he will hear the Canadian operator land. But Nesk uncharacteristically loses that fight to Gohan, and now it's all up to PSK, who gets defended or gets detected, but beheads Mav before Gohan trades. And now FaZe has tied it up. So what happened there with Zig? I'm not certain if it was him trying to save his drone, but he did look like he disoriented the blitz and was maybe trying to capitalize on the fact that he had that window to take the blitz.
Either way, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
absolutely baited.
It doesn't, you know, it's all, he peeked into something he did not need to peek into. If it was saving the drone, if it was trying to get the kill on the player he disoriented, none of it matters. It's just, he needed to play that defensively. He needed to support his teammate from the side. He needed to allow the bandit of Bullet to continue to bandit trick that wall and thus hold Strip. Now, once the blitz pushed in, it was all said and done for the bandit. He could not run. There was too long of an angle to get back to the site. But, yeah, it was Zig's job to flank hold. He didn't flank hold. It was unfortunate. Either way, a good start to the hold. Fell apart a little bit into the middle of that round.
I want to give some credit to Liquid right now for the fact, I don't know why they're calling for a remake, but they are, so we might see a rehost in just a short second here. However, I want to give a lot of credit to Liquid because this is actually the best I think we've seen Liquid play in a very long time. Now, we come into this with the expectations being set that FaZe is going to perform very well, and I think that's pretty standard. 70-30, and the community definitely thought that as well, that hey, this is going to be a scenario wherein FaZe will probably walk away with this. There's still plenty of map left on Clubhouse and then Border 2. Right now, Liquid does hold the balance of power with their 1-map lead. But I think Liquid has played very well-rounded here. It hasn't just been Nesk running around and killing everything. It's been the team functioning as a unit. And even though the scoreboard is still favoring Zig and Nesk, I think the rest of the team's contributions are not being adequately shown in kill deaths or in point totals in general.
Yeah, as we said earlier, I think this is the best Liquid we have ever seen. Since Liquid has been Liquid, this is top performance from them. So even if we go on to see a 2-1 in favor of FaZe, even if that happens, no matter what, this is a good Liquid team. I want to see more of this Liquid team. Please, 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 please let this be the consistent Liquid team from here on out. Because this is what everyone's expected from them. When they started out, you know, everyone was like, oh my gosh, Liquid, and a super team at that. Some of the biggest names in the Latin American region. And then it was just a little bit lackluster. It didn't see that performance. We didn't see that performance from Liquid. And now we're finally seeing them go toe-to-toe with what I think most people are considering one of the top teams in Latin America, and of course the world.
The world.
Yeah, which is FaZe. And yeah, no matter what, this is impressive. This is a really good match.
I think we need to take note as well. I'm sure people don't need this to be said, but I think it needs us to say it, is that how close this has been. They've been very even strokes. And you have Liquid winning their map by a score of 6-5. Right now, all tied up on FaZe's map 2 apiece. Both teams have looked good. Every team makes mistakes. Both these teams have made a share of mistakes so far. We've seen them firsthand. It's been the story this week, actually, with the amount of mistakes that CLG was made versus Mouse and Mouse made versus CLG, the amount of mistakes that Rogue made versus SK, and vice versa. So what I'm looking at is this is going to be a very, very good match between the teams. And I think we're going to see Border, personally. I would be very surprised if we don't go to the third matchup, but I'm impressed with Liquid.
Yes, as am I. And the same for FaZe. You know, it's worth saying as well, you know, they get a lot of praise a lot of the time, but they deserve it, and they are playing really well in this match as well. So good job to both the teams. We should be getting everything up and ready soon. Unsure what the exact issues are, but it is going to be, of course, the same score, just 2-2. And we'll be going back onto that defense of the basement. So on that note, we've talked about the way that Clubhouse plays out a lot. Let's continue to do so. It's the mold. It's Clubhouse. You win your basement defense, you lose your bar defense, and that is the nature of the map. Now, it's always the team that breaks for you that first, usually. Sorry, I say always, too strong language there. Usually the team that breaks free of that mold first that wins the map overall. But I can see these teams walking the tightrope of just staying in the mold all the way to the 11th round yet again. I could totally see that.
You think it's going to be another 6-5?
I think we could go that far, yeah.
So far, it's definitely looking like that. Yeah. I haven't seen anything from either side to inspire confidence in me that one team is going to take complete control of the match. It's so far just been really tight between both of them, and that means great news for us. But for the teams, maybe not exactly stoked at the idea of potentially playing 22 rounds in your first 2 matches. I mean, hey, that's a lot of game to play. And that's a lot of times where, and then the other thing too is that as a former player, I'm sure you can agree with this, and we'll head back into the game now as we're all ready to go into Clubhouse once again. The score is going to show 2-2 at the top of your screen in just a moment. As a former player, I'm sure you can agree with this. The more rounds there are, the more there is for you to dissect as a team, but also more for you to regret that you did or did not do.
Also, fatigue at some point just starts setting in. I mean, you get to the point where it's really just, you can't keep playing at the same level. You start reverting to your baser instincts, your pure muscle memory. And you know, that's a lot of what this level of gaming is, right? Of course, it's your built-up muscle memory, but you gotta have cognitive function. And it'll start to wear away at you, that's for sure. But it does that for both teams.
Right.
So there is that key in mind. Now, a very open strategy downstairs for FaZe, and yet again they're going to be bringing the Valkyrie, putting a lot of emphasis on those downstairs cameras. Potentially an upstairs one here for Mav, but he's still making up his mind.
They're very surprised at how little Pulse play we've been seeing. Could be potentially a regional thing, because Pulse does have a very large presence on Clubhouse and how important he is. But at the same time, what's a big difference that a Valkyrie brings you that a Pulse doesn't on this map?
Well, like I talked about earlier, it's all about having information in the site rather than out of the site. So the Pulse gives you a lot of information on what to expect. But you already know what to expect. This is Clubhouse Basement. You know what you're looking for from the attack, and you're just gonna wait for it. Now, of course, that does mean you're not gonna get as many C4 kills through the floor, but that's just kind of a gamble. Those kills are often luck. You know, yes, you can gather the information, but oftentimes it comes down to the attackers making a mistake to let you get that kill. But the cameras in the site mean that when you're going for the retake, which is inevitable given how much control the attackers can exert in this meta so easily, you have the information to work with.
As well, Pulse is very susceptible to needing to move. So if you pop a
Yeah.
Lion and your Valkyrie, you can use those cameras without needing to move around, whereas Pulse, very easy for you to pinch him and find him and hunt him down, especially with how penetrable that floor is. Most of that entire floor, if not all of it, is completely destructible. And if you pop a Lion and Pulse tries to get out of the way as Buck is above you, good luck.
Yeah. No. So you're either going to be bringing a mute and putting a conga line, as I think it was referenced earlier by Milos, I want to say, inside of the site, or you're having a bad time with that Pulse. You're just going to be sitting still and, like you say, you're going to die. So
We call it the Mute Jammer Superhighway.
It was the Mute Jammer Superhighway?
It's a superhighway.
The,
Special. Same strategy as before. You're going to push the Blitz in through the dirt tunnel, escape tunnel, however you want to call it, as we are back downstairs to basement. First 2 in basement, 2 downstairs, or then 2 on bar itself. And Sexy Cake will once again see if he can waltz his way in. Now what happened last time was he burned all the smokes of Gohan and then got traded off himself. We'll see if he can get in time. He's lost almost a quarter of his health. He's looking to push in. He'll hit a Legion trap. He'll get hit with a grenade. And it looks like another smoke will go out now. And this isn't really well timed. It'll just slow Sexy Cake down. But hey, look at that. Neska's in sight. He'll get first kill. Mav off the board. And Sexy Cake in the tunnel takes out Gohan as Diffuser goes off successfully. FaZe distracted just as much as we are by the mayhem ensuing. And that'll be a second for the Blitz as Sexy Cake eliminates Moringa and has cleared out that tunnel by himself. Cameraman will now need the risky prospect of retaking and eliminate PSK. Sexy Cake just has 1 bar of HP left. That's it. He'll push in and a smoke will drop. Cameraman goes in and will be completely exposed in the doorway. Sexy Cake a 3K as Zig punishes Astro for the final kill of the round and Liquid regains the lead. And it's hard to attribute momentum at this stage in the actual matchup, but Liquid may just have it.
and what just happened there, Parker? Mold broken. An attack win on the basement. And that, in many circumstances on Clubhouse, many times throughout this map's history, is the precursor to an absolute victory.
So we said that this could go to the 11th round, and immediately Liquid throws that into question. And they're going to go back downstairs as well, as they had won defense previously on the basement, had to go up to bar, and now have the opportunity to go down to the bar, and that, or go down to the basement rather than going up to the bar.
Yeah, and those options are, of course, going to aid FaZe when they swing around to defense. So they're going to get to go back down because they didn't win it. But at the same time, it's the rounds that you win, and it's just, it weighs so heavily on you when you can't win that basement hole, at least when you're seeing your typical Clubhouse play out. Interesting double mirror strategy from Liquid. Now, we've seen a couple of different interpretations on what the right mirror window strategy is on that particular wall. Some teams choose to reinforce the far right and far left wall, commonly referred to as 1 and 3. Some teams choose to reinforce the whole thing. No mirror windows on it. I mean, it's just, you know, it's whatever floats your boat, really, it seems. But they're going to go for a side-by-side mirror on reinforced walls. Looks like we might have another remake. I'm not sure what's happening here, but both teams calling for a remake, so apparently Astro has crashed. That's unfortunate. I wonder if that might have been why we had to remake last time. It's unfortunate. Some technical issues. It happens, you know, from time to time.
Yeah, so unfortunate that his computer having some issues, it does appear. Now, we were able to get one round out in the meantime, and that was what you said, the mold being broken downstairs. Here's what grasped my attention very briefly. They had essentially put PSK inside of the dirt tunnel and then had castled him off. So he was going to have to play in there. So even if he dies, it's basically like a suicide mission at that point. He's trapped inside a dirt tunnel. If your smoke dies, you still have to deal with the castle barricade. You're usually going to have an operator in there accompanying the blitz that is capable of destroying that barricade. But if it's been a Hibana, which most recently it has been, not enough X-Keros to be able to take care of that castle barricade. At that point, you don't really have much of an option because your blitz probably isn't bringing breaching charges, and your Hibana cannot use any more X-Keros if they've all been used on hatches above. So that was a smart strategy. But how are you going to use those other two castle barricades to keep them out?
I mean, I'm not sure where they were planning on putting those other 2 castle barricades, to be honest. The interesting thing for me was just the same as you. I mean, why are you putting a big castle barricade on the tunnel when you could, play the aggressive hold that's been working seemingly for both teams so much in this match?
Right.
I absolutely agree. But, I mean, it's an interesting interpretation. And I think it probably has something to do with what you were talking about, where banking on the fact that they won't have anyone who can open the castle barricade easily. Now, that said, because we've just seen a rehost, that might not be their actual intention moving forward now, because
Right.
it's very possible in the prep phase that castle barricade was droned out and will be called out to the team on attack now, and they will say, okay, we need to have someone who can get the barricade in position when we need the barricade opened. Now, of course, it's very I don't believe they're going to be able to rotate operators, given that they were already selected. Of course, that's an admin decision. That's not up to us.
Right.
But regardless, they'll probably put one of the operators they have that can open that barricade in a spot to open it, should that be the strategy the defenders employ. What's really interesting for me, I want to go a little bit further back. We're looking at the attack round that we just saw Liquid win on their basement assault. They executed the same thing that we saw them do in the past. Remember we were talking about Zig, who ran from the kitchen drop and he tried to push his way into church,
Right.
and it seemed like a really foolish push, like something you would say is that's questionable. They did the same thing, this time with Nesk, I believe it was, and it saw great success.
Right.
So the strategy didn't change. The operators the operator selection for the individual players and the player positions changed, and that was the winning formula for Liquid. So good adaptation at one level to give them the win.
For me, rehosts are a big disadvantage for the defenders because you can get most of their setup. You said that yourself. Most of it is droned out, and I think this is where the admin decision really comes in, because love it or hate it, if the defenders get fully droned out and are not given an opportunity to change operators, they have to completely reinvent their defensive setup, or else you've had your entire setup droned out and you know exactly what you can do, and you now have all this time to potentially think about how to change it.
And of course, the only operator that can be really identified in the prep phase is Twitch, because she gives herself away with the drone, but everyone else has a uniform drone that looks exactly the same. So the attackers gather. In 45 seconds, the attackers get to gather a lot of information, whereas the defenders simply get to suffer that information gathering the best that they can. So yes, when you have a rehost in the prep phase, it always favors the attackers.
Yes. So that's a disadvantage that the defenders have, and that's why sometimes I believe you do see operator switches and that kind of thing. But once again, that is really up to admins. We can only speculate. We know just as much about the decision-making process as all of you do at home or wherever you are. You could be sitting in a Starbucks on your phone on Wi-Fi. We don't know. You're adults. You can do what you want. Maybe you're not adults. We don't know. Coffees are universal.
Probably a pretty wide selection. Of the age groups there.
And a possible rehost. So just ready to go in, but we are going to pause just for a second again and get things situated before we can head back into Clubhouse.
So we had it ready, and then
it wasn't ready.
We hit the start button, and then it rehost. So something's going on, technical issues, don't know exactly what the problem is, but they will persist. So we will stick around and talk more about this match, which has been very uniform. We talked about it being on Clubhouse. It's just going to kind of been the same exact thing that you would expect from a Clubhouse match many, many times. And actually, you know what? Cut myself off. We talked about Clubhouse too much. Let's talk about Border. Let's talk about the third map that we could possibly get to if FaZe turns this around and goes all the way to the 2-1 potential. So Border, a very interesting map. It's one that I think FaZe really enjoys playing, and I think it's one that Team Liquid might have a slight disadvantage on.
I think I'm going to agree with you here. I think if FaZe wins Clubhouse, I think they'll probably have momentum to carry forward on Border, and that could be it for Liquid. It really depends on what happens. Now, FaZe is at a one-round deficit on Clubhouse, on their matchup. You said breaking the mold. I think that applies here absolutely in a situation now where, Liquid wins the first attacking round, and more importantly, they win the attacking round on the basement, which is huge, because understandable winning it on bar.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Both teams did it.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to win on bar, and then you're going to go back downstairs, and you're going to hope. This is what we saw last season. This is what we saw previous seasons, is that you win the basement, you go up to bar stock, you hope to God that you win. If you do win it on defense, that's breaking the mold. If you win basement on attack, that's breaking the mold. If you can be a team that wins on bar, and then you get to go back downstairs, you're in pretty good position, typically. Just the same way as that if you win a basement hold, and you know they have to go back down there, you're in pretty good position as well.
Right. So... yeah, the off-site wins, or the off-meta wins, as it were, is really what it comes down to on Clubhouse. But on Border, our potential third map, should we get to it, we look at very commonly an armory defense followed up by a ventilation defense. But in Latin America, and actually I think from Liquid as well as FaZe, both teams have done this for us before in the past. They tend to rotate sites a little bit more. They'll often go to that bathroom tellers, which is something we just don't see very much of.
Or even customs too, which is another site, as you said.
It's a little bit higher pick rate, but it's still lower than armory ventilation.
I feel like customs isn't played that much by Latin America either.
Yeah.
They typically seem to go between the workshop tellers and going upstairs, you know.
And
so
sometimes we'll see the odd.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But very rarely will we see that bathroom teller.
I just think in a game this close, I don't think you can really take gambles. And I think you don't have that same, you don't have all that road to potentially run out of at some point. You're very confined because you know how closely matched these teams are. We've seen how closely matched these teams are. You can't come into this and immediately pick, some quirky site with some strange hold that, you haven't really tried out all that much, because then you lose a round. And right now, one lost round on Oregon would have swung the map in favor of FaZe. That's all it takes at this level.
I mean, we saw on Oregon as well, though, 2 rounds where a singular defender clutched it out, just waiting out the time. One Valkyrie in attic, one smoke on the west window by the dresser, and just time. But, ladies and gentlemen, I think
in just a moment,
we'll
be heading to Clubhouse.
We'll be getting back into the action. Of course, the score, I believe, is 2-3 in favor of Liquid.
It's not their map, though.
It's not their map.
Right. So we could potentially see Border as the tiebreaker. Both teams are in. Everything seems to be working reasonably well. And even though we have not even made it to a third map, we have had one of the longest games so far of this season. Not just in part because of the rehost, but also the fact that these teams have been taking rounds quite slowly. We're not seeing these early get in and plan in the first minute and a half. It's much more methodical. And I don't know if that speaks to these teams being that evenly matched or just a lack of bravado on attack.
I think, honestly, it comes down to the respect that they're paying each other. The understanding that they are up against, and I'm talking about both teams here, skilled opponents that they need to take seriously. And they're taking, well, and I say there, I mean this in the manner of which all these players are taking each other very seriously. And thus, the slow rounds. Now, this is very interesting. We've got an open kitchen drop down on defense.
I would love to be able to. Unfortunately, we are unable to communicate with the observer. It is not Marcio. I think a lot of people misattribute this observation to Marcio. Marcio does not observe Latin America. It is an in-house observer in Brazil that does the work here. We do not have any means of communicating with them. So sometimes when we want to see things, it can prove to be a little difficult because of that lack of communication. I want to know where these castle barricades are because we are seeing a very extremely interesting and aggressive offsite hold. They have a lot of roamers, and if you know anything about Clubhouse, you don't roam on it that well, especially not on basement.
Yeah, not on the basement. The castle barricades are placed on the kitchen window, the freezer door, and of course probably the tunnel door. Those will be the 3 castles from Team Liquid. I like that setup from Nesk and the squad overall. It is going to trip up FaZe Clan. As you can see, they've had to reevaluate a few things and are now coming at this in a different manner. They typically would just clear straight into kitchen and start opening up the holes, but they just can't do that right now. Now you do have the Jaeger bullet on that pool table, and he's going to be in a pretty exposed position should any attacker come to the window, but no one's there right now to capitalize. And so Bullet will be able to play freely. EE1D pops off, and this is going to force Bullet to stand still in this really dangerous position, but yet again, no one on FaZe Clan in a position to capitalize. And so, a wasted EE1D.
It did look like the Lion and cameraman was approaching the billiards window before
did.
moving towards the main stairs. And wow, cameraman does catch Bullet after Gohan just goes for a hot drop. The buck off the board and Bullet down. That is a worthy trade in my opinion for Liquid. They will win that one.
Yeah.
And this is a mirror strategy that we have seen on a number of times, but very interesting. It looks like they will get that one castle barricade down as PSK will run for the hills. And now Sexy Cake has gone back to site 2. Nesk is going to watch inside a kitchen. He sees the head ever so slightly of the Thermite as he runs by that kitchen drop down. The only question is, will Astro spot the castle, playing quite cheekily? There is no Claymore in Garage. That right there is quite an unusual move too, and will allow Sexy Cake to creep ever so slightly up towards the lounge stairs. And Nesk sees one, will give his position away, as I don't know if Moringa was intending to draw him out, but will indeed. Now Nesk will hold the tight angle, the Thermite will flash, and Nesk looks away, and as the EE1D disappears, the castle will move. PSK eliminating Mab as he was able to get back, and a double for PSK, the smoke eliminating 2, and that's going to leave Cameraman and Moringa, just your Thermite and your Lion. The last EE1D will go, as he'll just rush right down the corridor before getting torn to pieces, but no! He manages to somehow take out Zig, as Nesk takes out Moringa, and it's all up to the Lion of Cameraman. Liquid about to go on to match point here, and match point indeed they will go. Nesk just sitting waiting under that drop hatch. A very innovative roam for them, and that is a risk, and we had just said, I feel like you don't take risks at this level because they don't pay off. Well, hey, Liquid took a pretty big risk there, and they're now on match point.
The amazing thing for me in that round was how heavily that risk tripped up FaZe Clan. You could see they were just unnerved. They weren't sure how they were going to address that hold, and the manner in which they did really was not appropriate. They struggled getting the Jaeger and billiards just to start things off, with that buck kind of foolishly dropping on top of him, trying to Goomba stomp. That doesn't work in this game, and dying as a result. But there was a quick refrag from FaZe. They just weren't able to get the control they really needed. After that refrag, there was still the kitchen roam to deal with, and then the kitchen roam simply fell back because the drop down was open and there was no pressure for Nesk to stay upstairs. I mean, just in general, a well-organized defense from Liquid. Now, the most important thing for me is that PSK was castle barricaded into the construction tunnel. He had no hope for retreat. He didn't even open the castle barricade. You saw he thought about it. He didn't. And because of that decision to stay in the tunnel and just wait out the round, and that outplay in the mind game that forced, that made FaZe think they had control of the tunnel because of the castle barricade, allowed him to get a double kill onto a Blitz, and I believe, actually I can't recall the second, the operator. I want to say it was a Bana too, because that's who they've been pushing in with the Blitz every time. But getting the double kill regardless, mainly onto the Blitz, was huge.
Anybody watching this, feel free to add this to your Rainbow Six vocabulary. That's called the caged animal strat. It's when you trap them in with either a barricade or a castle barricade, then you let them go loose, and that was exactly what it was. It's fondly referred to as the caged animal strategy. So,
and the newest member of Team Liquid proving himself to be truly rabid animal.
So right now we do not look like we will be seeing Border, at least if Liquid can take one of the next 2 rounds, and that's all they need to do. FaZe facing the rare prospect of a loss. Now, going back historically, FaZe is typically, when they were known as Font, were the team that always typically showed up on LAN, but never really played their best online. Liquid, when they were known as BRK, were always the team that would play really well online and maybe not have the same performance on LAN. And this right now is what we see. Liquid is playing exceedingly well, and they're actually playing better, I would say, than at any point they did during the 6 Invitational ladder matches and then the 6 Invitational itself. So could it be just the change to add PSK, the newest member, as you just pointed out, but Liquid, I think, beating expectations by a certain margin, at least if that 70-30 community vote is any indication.
Oh, by a country mile, they beat expectations. They're doing a great job here in this match, as is clear.
Toxicity bans.
I think it's inappropriate or something. Inappropriate.
Yeah, for inappropriate.
Yeah.
For toxic behavior.
I love it.
So, yeah, it's great.
So red light in the tunnel, and that's going to force Gohan to stand still. But again, no one from Liquid going to be able to get that kill. They're just playing it slow. As we've talked about, this is a slow match because both teams on their attacks are just taking it very seriously, and rightfully so. As we've seen, they're both punching at the same weight. Sexy Cake trying to push in, but he's going to take a breath of bad air and have to take a step backwards, losing a good amount of HP. The Candelas and the smokes are liable to come out right now, and here comes the push.
And they're going to drop. The smokes go down, PSK hits the deck. He does hold the diffuser, so watch for the thermite. But no, what a C4! Cameraman blows up Nesk and PSK. Your Ying and your thermite will no longer be available, and FaZe just manages to reclaim this round. Zig will now fall to, and FaZe firmly in the driver's seat, but Liquid will counterpunch. They take couple down, and it's all up to Sexy Cake, but Astro with the double to finish things off, and FaZe lives at least another round. They had that firmly in hand before Cameraman's C4 blew things wide open, and FaZe is going to have one more round to possibly push this onto overtime.
Honestly, I was thinking Liquid was going to take that round through and through. It seemed like their execution was well positioned, well placed. The one thing is that they did not get enough control over that tunnel before they decided to execute. A little bit early there, jumping the gun. Also, that C4. Not much they could have done about it, to be honest. That was just all FaZe reading the situation perfectly. There's smoke in the eyes of the attackers. They don't have a way to stop you from tossing the C4, so go for it. You know the push has to be coming now because there's only 30 seconds left, so go for it. And FaZe went for it. They got that C4, the double kill, delaying the push. More importantly, getting that spearhead completely lobbed off.
So the biggest thing for me that I noticed was that they did not allow the blitz to gain enough traction in that tunnel before their push started.
Right.
And I think a lot of credit needs to go to the smoke play. Absolutely. Sexy Cake didn't take that much damage, but was delayed long enough that he and his bodyguard could not, or his escort rather, could not get inside of the site. Because there's no way Cameraman is afforded that ability to toss that C4 if they have control of dirt. But because FaZe still held dirt, there was no way that Cameraman was going to be pushed from that angle, and that's part of why the C4 happened. Here's where trouble starts to occur for Liquid.
Yeah.
They won on basement, they now have to defend bar. They have the unenviable task of going for the much harder to defend site with the match on the line for them, and they obviously don't want to potentially roll the die on where they are going to have to go should overtime await us. Who's going to defend twice?
Yeah, nobody has successfully defended the bar yet. We've seen it twice so far, and I believe once from each team.
Yes.
So it's been a struggle, and it... Oh, that's a good start, though. The buck goes down. Sexy, where was that? It seems like it was across... No, it was actually at the top of Cash Stairs, through the wall, I believe. He manages to get the buck. That is, ladies and gentlemen, that is lazy droning right there from FaZe Clan. Not checking the stairs before you push into Cash. What are you doing? Mav gonna try and push up the stairs, but there's stairs! You can't push upstairs with the shield. They don't angle like that. Sexy Cake will finish off that blitz, but luckily there is going to be Astro in a position to refrag, and that is oh so crucial. FaZe needs everything they can get right now as they attack onto this bar, seemingly at a disadvantage early on. The only thing that they're going to have is the fact that they're attacking bar. E1Ds pop out. There's still a lot of time left in this round as gas canisters start flying. Astro will get hit by the yokai, forcing him to fall back. It looks pretty bad for FaZe. They're starting to stall.
And he just missed Nesk as well, as sitting by the stage inside of bar. So Astro still doesn't know where that yokai is, positioned just above him. They don't have control of the diffuser, and that's very important to note. They still have 2 Lions left. Now we're going to see another EE1D go out now, and Astro's trying to come in and take out the smoke. PSK eliminates Moringa. It's only 2 members of FaZe left, and as Astro falls, it's all up to Cameraman. He's looked so good on this Lion, but he has the near impossible task and won't be able to complete it. FaZe falling 0-2 as Liquid takes the group stage, and they will advance to the playoffs, and they'll await the victor of Boot Camp versus Team 1. And what a surge for Team Liquid. 30% of the community thought this was going to happen, and they were right. Team Liquid looking really, really strong.